When I met my fiancé's parents, his mother doused me with scalding coffee and sneered, "That's to purify a nobody. Pay $500,000, 0 cents to join our family." My fiancé smirked. So I locked eyes with her and said, "I'm severing all ties with your empire." I stood at the edge of the stage, the spotlight searing my skin, my heart pounding like a war drum. Silicon Valley's most powerful investors, sharks in tailored suits, stared up at me, their eyes glinting with skepticism and hunger. This was it, the pitch that could catapult Horizon Ventures, my AI funding firm, into the stratosphere. $500 million in valuation, and I was about to prove we were worth every cent. My slides were flawless, my data ironclad, my vision revolutionary. I clicked the remote to begin, and the massive screen behind me flickered to life. Then it happened. The numbers on the slide twisted into lies. Revenue projections slashed, growth charts inverted, my proprietary AI algorithms exposed as unstable. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My chest tightened as I scanned the room, spotting James Whitaker, my rival, smirking from the back. Someone had hacked my presentation, sabotaged me in front of the world's elite. I froze, my mind racing. Years of clawing my way up from a Portland suburb, sleepless nights and relentless hustle flashed before me. I couldn't let this destroy me. "Technical glitch," I said, forcing a smile, my voice steady despite the chaos. "Let's switch to the backup." My team scrambled, and within minutes, the real slides were up, the truth restored. I powered through, nailing every point, but the damage was done. Whispers of doubt lingered, and as I left the stage, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Nice try, Harper. You're playing with the big dogs now." I'm Olivia Harper, 30, a venture capitalist who built Horizon Ventures from a cramped Seattle apartment into a $500 million powerhouse. I wasn't born into wealth or connections. My parents were librarians, scraping by in a Portland suburb, teaching me that hard work was the only currency that mattered. I earned my Stanford MBA through scholarships and sheer grit, working 2 jobs while my classmates networked at country clubs. Every deal I closed, every startup I funded, was a middle finger to the elite who thought I didn't belong. But that day in Silicon Valley, someone wanted me to fail. Badly. I didn't have time to dwell on it. That evening, I was on a private yacht in Puget Sound, the Seattle skyline shimmering in the distance. Nathan Caldwell, the man who'd stolen my heart, stood before me, his hazel eyes warm under the starlight. He was 32, heir to Caldwell Enterprises, a real estate empire that spanned continents. We'd met at that same Silicon Valley summit a year ago, his thoughtful questions about my AI platform sparking a connection I hadn't expected. Nathan was different. Charming, ambitious, and genuinely proud of the empire I'd built. He brought me coffee during late-night deal closings, celebrated every milestone, and made me believe love could coexist with my relentless drive. "Olivia," he said, dropping to one knee, a sapphire heirloom ring glinting in his hand. "You're my partner, my equal. Marry me." My breath caught. The ring was stunning, a Caldwell family treasure, and his words hit me like a tidal wave. I said yes, my heart soaring, oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon. A month later, Horizon Ventures landed a $50 million 0 cents investment from Caldwell Enterprises to fund a groundbreaking AI platform. It was a coup, tying 25% of my revenue to Nathan's family, but I saw it as a partnership, not a risk. Nathan hinted at his mother Margaret's old-world values, her obsession with legacy, but I brushed it off. I was too caught up in our engagement, too confident in my ability to navigate any challenge. I'd faced worse than a particular mother-in-law, competitors, skeptics, even that hack pitch. What could she throw at me that I couldn't handle? I was about to find out. The drive to the Caldwell estate was a blur of rain and nerves. I'd chosen a tailored navy dress, elegant but understated, and rehearsed small talk about art and philanthropy, determined to make a good impression. But as I merged onto the I-5 freeway, my car lurched violently, the steering wheel jerking in my hands. Tires screeched as I swerved, narrowly avoiding a semi-truck, my heart slamming against my ribs. The car stabilized, but something was wrong. Someone had tampered with the brakes. I pulled over, shaking, and called Nathan. "I almost crashed," I said, my voice trembling. "Something's not right with my car." "Jesus, Liv, are you okay?" His concern sounded genuine, but he added, "You're probably just stressed. Get here safe, all right?" I hung up, unease creeping in. A mechanic later confirmed the brake lines had been cut, but with no proof of who did it. I had to let it go. I rented a car and pressed on, determined not to let fear derail me. The Caldwell estate loomed at the end of a private drive, a glass and steel masterpiece perched on Seattle's waterfront. It wasn't just a house, it was a fortress of wealth, its sleek lines and manicured gardens screaming power. I stepped out, my heels clicking on the marble steps, and felt like an intruder in a world I'd never fully understand. Nathan squeezed my hand. "It's just a house," he said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. A uniformed butler ushered us into a foyer larger than my first apartment, its crystal chandelier casting prisms across family portraits. Generations of Caldwells stared down, their expressions cold and commanding, Nathan's hazel eyes mirrored in their faces. Margaret Caldwell emerged from a side room, a vision in a black Chanel dress, her pearl necklace gleaming like armor. She was in her late 50s, her face a mask of practiced elegance, but her gaze sliced through me, assessing every detail from my hair to my shoes. "Nathan, darling," she said, air-kissing his cheeks before turning to me, "and you must be Olivia." Her handshake was a fleeting brush, her smile never reaching her eyes. "How quaint to meet you." The word quaint landed like a slap, but I held my ground, offering a polite nod. Henry Caldwell, Nathan's father, entered next, his silver hair and warm handshake a stark contrast to Margaret's frost. "Welcome, Olivia," he said, his voice kind but restrained. "Nathan speaks highly of your firm." I thanked him, clinging to his warmth as we moved to a sitting room where a maid served champagne and crystal flutes. I perched on an antique sofa, Margaret's scrutiny like a physical weight. "So, Olivia," she began, her tone deceptively light, "tell us about your family. What does your father do?" "He's a retired librarian," I said, proud of my roots. "My mother was one too, but she passed 3 years ago." "Librarians," Margaret repeated as if tasting something sour. "No family wealth, then? No trust funds or estates?" "Mum," Nathan said, but his tone was amused, not defensive. I swallowed my irritation. "No," I said evenly. "I built Horizon Ventures from nothing. It's valued at $500 million now." "A gambler's game," Margaret said, waving a hand. "Venture capital is so speculative. Hardly a foundation for a Caldwell wife." Her words stung, but I forced a smile, mentioning our $50 million 0-cents deal with Caldwell Enterprises to shift the conversation. Margaret's eyes narrowed. "I wasn't aware of that," she said, clearly displeased. "I leave such details to our managers." Her dismissal was a warning, but I pressed on, explaining our AI platform's impact. She cut me off. "Let's not bore the table with business, dear." Dinner was announced, and we moved to a dining room that could have hosted a state banquet. The mahogany table gleamed under candlelight, set with china so fine it looked like it might shatter under a glance. I was grateful for my etiquette research. 3 forks, 2 spoons, multiple glasses. But Margaret's interrogation didn't stop. She criticized my posture, my loud voice, even my compliment of their home, calling it grateful rather than refined. Each jab was delivered with a smile, as if she were doing me a favor by pointing out my flaws. As the first course arrived, a chilled asparagus soup I barely tasted, Margaret leaned forward. "Olivia, have you considered children? The Caldwell line is paramount." "We haven't discussed timing," I said carefully. "I'd like Horizon to be stable first." "Stable?" she laughed, a sharp cutting sound. "Your little firm is a house of cards. A mother's duty is to her family, not her hobbies." "Horizon isn't a hobby," I said, my voice firm. "We fund startups that employ thousands." "Thousands dependent on you," she shot back. "How reckless." Nathan stayed silent, his eyes fixed on his plate, and my stomach twisted. Where was the man who'd proposed to me, who'd called me his equal? By dessert, a delicate chocolate torte. The tension was suffocating. Margaret had moved on to my lack of social pedigree. No country club memberships, no charity boards. I tried to steer the conversation to her hospital foundation, hoping to find common ground. "It's admirable work," I said sincerely. She nodded, almost pleased. "Philanthropy is a Caldwell tradition. Perhaps one day you'll be equipped to contribute." The condescension was palpable, but I pressed on, mentioning Horizon's program for underprivileged tech students. "Charming," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. Then, without warning, she seized her coffee cup and flung its scalding contents across my hands. I gasped, pain shooting through my skin as the hot liquid dripped onto my dress, staining the navy fabric. The room fell silent, the air thick with shock. "That's to cleanse your ambition," Margaret said calmly, as if she'd merely swatted a fly. "If you want to marry my son, you'll need to contribute a $500,000, 0 cents endowment to the Caldwell Family Trust. Consider it your entry fee." I sat frozen, my hands throbbing, my mind reeling. $500,000 to buy my place in their family? The humiliation burned hotter than the coffee. I looked to Nathan, expecting outrage, but he laughed, a low, nervous chuckle as if this were a family prank. "Mom's got her rituals," he said, handing me a napkin. "She did this to my cousin's wife, too." Henry shifted uncomfortably, but said nothing. Margaret sipped her wine, unruffled. "The Caldwells don't marry down without compensation," she said. "Your firm may be thriving now, but startups crash. The endowment ensures you're committed to us, not Nathan's inheritance." I dabbed at my hands, the skin red and stinging, my voice barely steady. "I didn't realize marriage came with a price tag." "Everything valuable does," Margaret replied. "If you love Nathan, this shouldn't be an issue." The rest of the dinner was a blur. I barely ate, my appetite obliterated by pain and betrayal. Nathan acted as if nothing had happened, chatting about yacht races and mutual friends I'd never met. As we prepared to leave, Margaret patted my cheek like I was a child. "My assistant will send the account details for the transfer. Business is business, dear. The endowment is personal." I stumbled out of the mansion, the night air cold against my burned hands. But as I crossed the gravel drive to Nathan's BMW, a shadow moved in the darkness. A masked figure lunged, shoving me toward the estate's private dock, the black water of Puget Sound gleaming below. I screamed, twisting free, my heels catching on the wooden planks as I scrambled back to the car. The figure vanished into the night, leaving me gasping, my pulse hammering. "What the hell was that?" I demanded as Nathan slid into the driver's seat. He frowned, glancing at the dock. "Probably just a groundskeeper." "You're jumpy, Liv." His nonchalance was maddening, but I was too shaken to argue. We drove in silence, my hands throbbing, my mind replaying the coffee, the endowment, the attack. Who wanted me gone, and why? The next morning, my inbox held an email from Margaret, as crisp and professional as if she hadn't assaulted me. Olivia, we expect the endowment within 30 days. I've scheduled a meeting tomorrow to discuss adjustments to our investment terms. Be prepared. No mention of the coffee, no apology, just demands. My burns were still raw, but her audacity lit a fire in me. I wasn't some pawn to be bought or broken. I called Sophie Nguyen, my business partner and closest friend, who'd been with me since Horizon's earliest days. "Soph, I need you to dig into something," I said, recounting the dinner, the endowment, the dock incident. Her gasp was audible through the phone. "That's insane, Liv. Who throws coffee? And $500,000, 0 cents. This isn't the Middle Ages." She paused. "I heard rumors yesterday. Margaret's been bad-mouthing Horizon to investors, saying we're over-leveraged. I thought it was just gossip, but find out who she's talking to," I said, my jaw tight, "and see if the Caldwells have done this before." Sophie promised to call a lawyer friend who knew Seattle's elite, and I hung up, my mind racing. If Margaret was coming for my firm, I needed to be ready. That afternoon, I drove to Horizon's downtown office, a sleek glass tower that symbolized everything I'd built. But as I stepped into my corner suite, my heart stopped. Papers were strewn across the floor, my computer screen flickering with a taunting message. "You're out of your league, Harper." Someone had broken in, stealing critical documents for a $100 million 0-cent AI startup acquisition, our biggest deal yet. Security footage showed a hooded figure, untraceable, but the timing was too perfect. Was this Margaret, James Whitaker, or someone else entirely? I sank into my chair, the weight of the past 24 hours crushing me. My hands burned. My firm was under attack, and the man I loved had laughed while his mother humiliated me. But as I stared at the Seattle skyline, a spark of defiance ignited. I'd survived worse: poverty, skeptics, that hack pitch. Margaret Caldwell thought she could break me, but she didn't know who she was dealing with. The meeting with Margaret loomed, and I knew it wasn't just about business. It was a test, a power play, and I had to play smarter, harder, faster. Who had leaked my pitch deck in Silicon Valley? What was Margaret hiding behind her polished facade? And why did Nathan, the man who'd promised to stand by me, seem so complicit in his mother's game? I didn't have answers yet, but I had something stronger: the will to fight. The Seattle skyline glittered through my office window, a constellation of ambition and betrayal. My hands, still raw from Margaret Caldwell's scalding coffee, trembled as I gripped my phone, Nathan's latest text glaring up at me. "Pay the endowment, or Mom will tank your firm. Don't embarrass me." His words were a blade, slicing through the love I'd thought we shared. I'd built Horizon Ventures from nothing, a $500 million empire funding AI startups. And now the man who'd proposed to me was threatening to tear it down. I tossed the phone onto my desk, the glass surface reflecting my reflection. Exhausted, defiant, and done playing nice. I'm Olivia Harper, 30, a venture capitalist who clawed my way from a Portland suburb to Seattle's elite. My parents, librarians who valued books over bank accounts, taught me that self-respect was non-negotiable. I'd earned my Stanford MBA through scholarships and relentless hustle, turning Horizon into a powerhouse. But in the past 48 hours, my world had cracked. A hacked pitch in Silicon Valley, a tampered car, a break-in at my office, and Margaret's humiliating demand for a $500,000 0-cent endowment to marry her son, Nathan Caldwell. Worst of all, Nathan had laughed as his mother burned me, his loyalty as flimsy as the sapphire ring I still wore. The office break-in had cost me critical documents for a $100 million 0-cents AI startup acquisition, and the anonymous message on my computer, "You're out of your league, Harper," echoed in my mind. Was it Margaret, James Whitaker, my rival VC who'd smirked during my sabotaged pitch, or someone closer, someone I trusted? I needed answers, and I needed them fast. Margaret's meeting was tomorrow, and her email had been clear. She expected compliance, both on the endowment and on adjustments to our $50 million 0-cents investment deal with Caldwell Enterprises. Adjustments, I suspected, that would gut Horizon's autonomy. I called Sophie Nguyen, my business partner and the only person I trusted implicitly. "Soph, it's worse than we thought," I said, pacing my office. "Nathan's threatening me now, and Margaret's meeting feels like a trap." Sophie's voice crackled with outrage. "He threatened you? Liv, this isn't just about money. They're trying to control you." She paused, her tone shifting. "My lawyer friend got back to me. The Caldwells have a history, extorting endowments from in-laws, forcing them to conform. Nathan's ex-fiancée, Claire, paid $400,000, 0-cents. Then Margaret made her quit her law firm. When Claire resisted, Nathan dumped her." My stomach churned. "Why didn't he tell me?" "Because he's complicit," Sophie said bluntly. "I'm digging into Margaret's investor gossip, too. She's been calling Horizon unstable, and one of our biggest backers, Pacific Capital, is wavering. They're threatening to pull $20 million, 0-cents, unless you cede control of Horizon's board." I froze, the skyline blurring. Pacific Capital's $20 million 0-cents was the backbone of our next funding round. Losing it would cripple us, and ceding control meant handing my life's work to Margaret's puppets. "She's boxing me in," I whispered. "Business, personal. She's attacking everything." "We'll fight this," Sophie said. "I'm meeting Claire tomorrow to get more dirt, and Liv, watch your back. That dock incident wasn't random." The dock, the masked figure who'd tried to push me into Puget Sound's icy waters. My car's cut brake lines. The break-in, someone wanted me scared, or worse. I hung up, my mind racing. I opened my laptop, pulling up the Caldwell contract, desperate for leverage. That's when I saw it, a hidden clause, buried in fine print, inserted after I'd signed. If Horizon missed a single payment milestone, Caldwell Enterprises could seize our intellectual property. Every algorithm, every patent, my firm's heart and soul. The clause hadn't been there during negotiations. Someone had tampered with the contract. Margaret? Nathan? The betrayal cut deeper than the burns on my hands. I needed air. I grabbed my coat and headed for the elevator, but as I stepped inside, my phone buzzed with another text from an unknown number. "Check Caldwell's study. Secrets hide in ledgers." My breath caught. Henry Caldwell, Nathan's father, had a locked study in their mansion, a room I'd glimpsed during dinner. Old leather-bound ledgers lined its shelves, guarded like relics. What secrets did they hold, and who was sending me these cryptic warnings? The elevator doors opened, and I stepped into the lobby, only to freeze. Nathan stood there, his hazel eyes dark with impatience. "Liv, we need to talk," he said, his voice low, commanding. "Now!" I crossed my arms, my burns throbbing under my sleeves. "Talk, or threaten me again." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. Pay the endowment. It's tradition, not personal. Mom's just protecting the family." "Protecting?" I snapped, stepping closer. "She burned me, Nathan. She's sabotaging my firm, and you're helping her. Choose, right now. Me or your mother's schemes." His jaw tightened, and for a moment I thought I saw the man I'd loved, the one who'd brought me coffee and believed in my dreams. But then he spoke, his voice cold. "The Caldwell legacy is bigger than us, Liv. If you can't handle that, maybe you don't belong here." He turned and walked away, leaving me in the empty lobby, my heart splintering. That night I barely slept, Nathan's words looping in my mind. I was due at a charity gala, a glittering event where Seattle's elite would be watching my every move. I slipped into a crimson gown, its bold color a defiance of Margaret's scorn, and headed to the Four Seasons. The ballroom sparkled with chandeliers and power, but I felt like a target. Investors whispered as I passed, their eyes lingering on my bandaged hands. Margaret's rumors were spreading, and Pacific Capital's CEO, Ellen Voss, cornered me by the bar. "Olivia, we're concerned," she said, her tone clipped. "Rumors of instability at Horizon. We're prepared to pull our $20 million, 0 cents unless you step back and let our appointees run the board." My pulse spiked. "Ellen, those rumors are baseless. Horizon's stronger than ever." She raised an eyebrow. "Prove it, or we're out." She walked away, leaving me reeling. Margaret's influence was a noose, tightening with every move I made. I grabbed a glass of champagne to steady myself, but as I sipped, my vision blurred. My legs buckled and I collapsed, the glass shattering on the marble floor. The room spun, voices murmuring stress, and overwhelmed as hands helped me up. But I knew better. My drink had been spiked. Someone wanted me humiliated, discredited. As medics escorted me out, I caught James Whittaker's smirk in the crowd, his presence a chilling reminder of the enemies circling me. Back at my apartment, Sophie called with a bombshell. "Liv, I traced Margaret's rumors. She's been meeting with James Whittaker. He's pushing investors to ditch Horizon, and if your firm collapses, his fund gets first dibs on your AI portfolio." Whittaker, the rival who'd gloated during my hacked pitch. Margaret was weaponizing him to destroy me, and Nathan's silence made him complicit. I sank onto my couch, the sapphire ring heavy on my finger. I wanted to believe Nathan could change, that our love could survive, but every sign pointed to betrayal. The next morning, I arrived at Horizon to find my board in chaos. Margaret had orchestrated a coup, convincing 2 members, Mark Reynolds and Susan Chen, to vote for her oversight, citing my reckless leadership. The boardroom was a battlefield, their accusations echoing Margaret's lies. "You're risking everything, Olivia," Mark said. "Caldwell's deal is critical. Why antagonize them?" "Because they're extorting me," I shot back, my voice steady despite the panic clawing my chest. "Margaret's not a partner. She's a predator. I won't let her control Horizon." Susan hesitated, her eyes softening. "We need proof, Olivia. Without it, we're exposed." "I'll get it," I promised, though I wasn't sure how. The board adjourned, their trust in me hanging by a thread. I retreated to my office, where my father's words echoed from a recent call. "True success is self-respect, Liv. Don't let bullies define you." His faith reignited my resolve, but the weight of Margaret's attacks was crushing. I met my mentor, Professor Elena Ruiz, at a quiet Capitol Hill cafe. Elena, a former VC titan, listened as I poured out the saga: Margaret's coffee, Nathan's threats, the spiked drink, the boardroom coup. "She's a corporate predator," Elena said, her voice sharp. "Margaret's exploiting your vulnerabilities. Your love for Nathan, your reliance on Caldwell's money. She thrives on control, but predators underestimate prey who fight back." "How do I fight?" I asked, desperate. "She's got more resources, more connections." Eleanor leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Surprise her. Use her arrogance against her. Dig into her weaknesses. Every empire has cracks." Inspired, I assigned my analyst Liam to investigate Caldwell Enterprises' finances. "Look for anything tax issues, shady deals," I said. Liam, a data wizard, nodded. I'm on it, boss. But be careful. Whoever's behind these attacks isn't playing small. That night, I returned to my apartment, exhausted but determined. As I unlocked the door, a faint hiss filled the air. Gas. My heart raced as I realized the stove was on, the room filling with a deadly cloud. I stumbled back, coughing, and dialed Liam, who lived nearby. He arrived in minutes, shutting off the valve and dragging me to safety. This was no accident, he said, his face grim. Someone rigged the line to explode. I shivered on the sidewalk, the Seattle rain soaking my clothes. The gas leak, the spiked drink, the dock, the car. Someone wanted me dead. Was it Margaret, Whitaker, or Nathan, proving his loyalty to his family's twisted legacy? I clutched my coat and a scrap of paper fell from the pocket. A note in Nathan's handwriting slipped into my coat during his lobby confrontation. Contingency plan in motion. Don't let her win. What contingency? Was Nathan playing both sides, or was this another trap? Liam's research came through the next day, and it was dynamite. Caldwell Enterprises has been dodging taxes for years, he said, sliding a report across my desk. Shell companies, offshore accounts, plus a pattern of coercive contract terminations. They've blackmailed partners into compliance, just like they're doing to you. I stared at the evidence, a lifeline in the chaos. My CFO, Rachel, added more hope. We can survive without Caldwell's $50 million, 0 cents, she said. I've got preliminary deals with Apex AI and Quantum Dynamics, $75 million, 0 cents combined. It'll hurt short term, but we'll be free. Freedom. The word tasted like salvation, but Margaret wasn't done. That afternoon, the Seattle Times published falsified emails, leaked by Margaret, accusing me of insider trading. The SEC launched an investigation and my phone lit up with panicked calls from investors. Margaret was burning my reputation to ash, and hours before her meeting, James Whitaker went public accusing me of stealing his firm's tech. His lawsuit threatened to bury Horizon in legal fees, a final nail in the coffin. But then, a miracle. An anonymous USB drive arrived at my office, containing recordings of Margaret's illegal deals, bribes, threats, tax evasion schemes. The voice on the tapes was unmistakable, her polished venom chilling. Who sent it? Henry? A disgruntled employee? The mystery deepened, but the recordings were my trump card. I rejected Nathan's final plea that night, his voice desperate over the phone. Live. Pay the endowment. Mom's willing to forgive everything. We can start over. I hung up, sliding the sapphire ring into a courier envelope. It wasn't just a ring. It was a shackle, and I was done wearing it. The showdown with Margaret was set for 9 a.m. at Horizon's downtown office. I spent the night preparing, rehearsing every word, every gesture. My legal team, led by Victoria Kane, confirmed we could void the Caldwell contract due to its fraudulent clause and Margaret's coercion. The board, swayed by my passion and Liam's evidence, rallied behind me, rejecting Margaret's coup. But Whitaker's lawsuit loomed, and the SEC probe cast a shadow as walking a tightrope, and one misstep could destroy everything. Margaret arrived precisely on time, her designer suit a stark contrast to the storm in her eyes. I'd chosen our glass-walled conference room, the Seattle skyline a reminder of what I'd built. No lawyers, no team, just us, predator and prey. Olivia, she said, settling into a chair, I'm pleased you've come to your senses. Nathan will be relieved. Thank you for coming, Mrs. Caldwell, I said, my voice steady, but you've misjudged this meeting's purpose. Her smile faltered as I slid a dossier across the table. Liam's report, the recordings, the tampered contract clause. Your tax evasion, your coercive terminations, your attempts to sabotage Horizon, it's all here. I'm terminating our partnership, effective immediately. Her face hardened, but I pressed on. You've threatened my firm, my reputation, my life. The car, the dock, the gas leak. I know you're behind them. And these recordings? They're with my lawyers, ready for the SEC if you push me. Margaret laughed, a brittle sound. You're delusional, girl. You think you can threaten me? One call and every door in this city slams shut. I leaned forward, my burns a reminder of her cruelty. Try it. The press loves a story about elite corruption. Your empire's cracks are showing, Margaret. I played a recording, her voice admitting to a bribe, her eyes widened, fear flickering for the first time. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. I don't want it, I said. Walk away, and this stays quiet. Escalate, and we'll see how Seattle's elite react to your crimes. I slid the courier envelope across the table. And this is for Nathan. I'm not buying a husband, Margaret. I'm building a life, one you'll never control. She stood, her composure cracking. You'll regret this. Nathan deserves better than a nobody like you. Maybe, I said, rising, but I deserve better than a family that burns and buys its way to loyalty. Security will see you out. As she left, I added, the $500,000 0 cents you wanted? I'm donating it to a fund for women entrepreneurs. Consider it my endowment to the future you'll never touch. Margaret's exit was silent, but the air hummed with victory. I sank into my chair, adrenaline fading, my hands shaking. I'd done it, faced the dragon and won. But the cost was steep. Nathan's betrayal, the attacks on my life, the SEC probe still looming. Yet as I looked out at the skyline, I felt a spark of hope. Horizon was mine, and so was my dignity. That evening, Henry Caldwell called, his voice heavy with regret. Olivia, I'm sorry. I sat silent while Margaret humiliated you, and I'm ashamed. I've resigned from Caldwell Enterprises, and I'm leaving her. Your courage showed me what I've enabled for too long. Thank you, Henry, I said, stunned. His resignation sent shockwaves through Seattle's elite, and rumors swirled. Had my stand pushed him to break free? The question lingered, unanswered. Horizon thrived in the aftermath, signing $75 million 0 cents deals with Apex AI and Quantum Dynamics, eclipsing Caldwell's contribution. The Seattle Times profiled my ethical stand, calling me a trailblazer in a world of sharks. Invitations to speak at Stanford and MIT followed, my story inspiring a new generation. Whitaker's lawsuit crumbled when the anonymous recordings implicated him in Margaret's schemes, and the SEC probe cleared me thanks to Victoria's brilliance. At an industry summit months later, Nathan approached, his new fiancée, a suitable heiress. On his arm. You were right, Liv, he said quietly. You shook our world. Mom's never been the same. I nodded, feeling nothing but closure. The man I'd loved was a stranger. His family's control a cage I'd escaped. I met Lucas Grant, a renewable energy CEO, at a conference. His respect and curiosity embalmed my wounds. Our partnership, personal and professional, grew slowly, rooted in equality, not ultimatums. When I won a Forbes Innovation Award, I stood at the podium, the weight of the past year lifting. Success isn't just building something great, I said. It's refusing to sell your soul to get there. Walk away from the wrong deal, the wrong love, the wrong life, and you'll find the right one. Horizon's new ethics code, born from this crucible, ensured we'd never bend to predators again. As I left the stage, applause echoing, I knew I'd paid a price. Love lost, scars earned. But I'd gained something priceless, a legacy of courage, a life I'd never trade.